So I grew up in a little, I call it a village, called Donkin. It's just outside of Glace Bay. And I had two brothers. I was the middle child. I definitely had middle child syndrome. We had a very structured life growing up. It was good, it was happy, it was fun, we always knew we were loved. It was the whole community in Donkin is like a family. And I was the kid who would, burst through the door of anybody's house and you didn't have an option, but I was one of those in-your-face kids, like, you gotta love me. So basically we grew up, we were always into sports. Like I was in competitive gymnastics, my brothers were in hockey, and our parents were really involved with all of that stuff. Well, my father was a doctor in Glace Bay, so we grew up in that type of environment of helping people and almost wanting to do things for your community. So from early on, I always thought, I just looked at both of my parents wow, I want to do that when I grow up. It was to see the reactions they got from the people that, helped and worked with and whatnot. It couldn't not have an impact on you. There was always family vacations, there was sleepovers with friends. It was just my mother literally is the person who would burst through your door in the morning and she's saying it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and she's her passion for life and her family and her kids. So every year my birthday usually lands on grading day. This year I was excited because I was finally going to be getting my own TV in my room. So that was going to be my gift from my dad. So then when my mother finally got home that morning, she sat the three of us down in the living room and had to tell us that our father had passed away. And obviously it was a shock and we had no idea, couldn't imagine that we were going to wake up that morning and get that news. But looking back, it's even harder to imagine the impact that it was going to have on our lives. We had no idea what was ahead of us, basically. Well, what we would learn later, he suffered from mental illness, bipolar disorder, and he ended up taking his life. He committed suicide. But at the time, we were young. We had never been introduced to mental illness or known, but it would come to have a huge impact on each one of our lives. I didn't understand the disease, so I just thought I took it as an attack, not so much an attack on me, but it made me think, okay, if this was the day he chose to do this the day before my birthday, knowing that birthdays were such a big thing in our family, and I took that as there had to be something wrong with me. I wasn't good enough for him to stick around. And so for years, rather than feeling that pain, I just blocked it out. I was numb. And I started chasing, once I got into high school and, boys were on the scene, I was desperate for the love that I thought I didn't get from my father. It took a long time and many, unhealthy relationships and just plain bad decisions on my part before I realized that the only love that I needed or that I was looking for was just to love myself. When, if you don't love yourself, you have nothing. Dealing with the guilt and regret has probably been the most difficult part. That I was able to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't because of anybody else. It was a disease. He died as a result of a mental illness. He didn't choose to have this mental illness. He didn't choose to leave his family. The disease did that to him. I always knew that I needed to get help, but I was running. Like, I just kept running. It didn't matter what came up next. I filled my life with chaos, with whether it was addiction, whether it was food. I always had something there to make, artificially make myself feel better. I've suffered from anxiety and depression since, I would say it started that summer. When I got to the point where I couldn't get out of bed and had no desire, no motivation, no hope. Hope is the biggest thing. Like, when you just, basically, for me, I went into every relationship, every goal that I set for myself, didn't matter what it was. I was either not good enough or never gonna complete it. I basically, for 17 years, have been a quitter. I felt like he quit on us. For so long, I felt like he quit on us, that became my life. That became who I was. And I started doing drugs. And before I knew it gave me a sense of numbness. And numbness to me at that point in my life was happiness. I just basically dove right in, and before I knew it, I was the girl popping pills, in between classes, in the girls' bathroom doing lines, and I started recreationally using painkillers and other types of prescription medications. I basically was high 24 hours a day. The pills or ecstasy on the weekends or whatever kind of drugs. And drinking and driving, as sick as that makes me feel right now, like, I did it on a regular basis. Just to think of how reckless I was and where the choices I was making, where that was taking me. I remember my older brother coming up over the stairs one day and asking me if I took the $10 out of his wallet. And I stood there with it tucked in my shirt and swore up and down, no, I didn't take it. And I saw the tears well up in his eyes. And just to see the pain, that's his little sister. I didn't ever think that the impact that my choices and my decisions had on him. I just wanted to keep feeling nothing. That was what did it for me at the time. And of course, everybody who loved me and, was on the inside, they became my enemy because, as they tried to help me, to me, they were trying to rob me of my happiness. The hardest part for me was not getting clean. The hardest part for me was the work you have to do afterwards. It's the emotional work, because that's what I'd been running from, emotional, wanting to deal with my feelings my whole life. So then when you add the choices you make, the bad choices you make, and the people you hurt as an addict, it's scary. I'm very good at isolating myself, and depression does that. I've spent weeks and months where I can hardly pull myself out of bed, and then you get the anxiety because obviously people, what are people thinking? I haven't been around in a while. It just snowballs. I'm not a quitter anymore. I'm working very hard. That's a daily thing for me, and that's where CrossFit came in, and that was the turning point for me, because every day when you go in and you do that workout and you have other people supporting you, and the biggest battle is the battle in your head, and I deal with that on a daily basis with things outside of CrossFit. But CrossFit taught me that moment that you want to give up and you want to quit. I felt that so many times in my life. And from the very first workout, I went to that scary place, and I had that feeling of, you can't do this. Just give up, just quit. The reward that you get at the end when you finish is a greater high, it's a greater sense of achievement and accomplishment than I've ever felt. I am working on starting, it's going to be called Shine Bright. It's a nonprofit to help young girls who struggle with anything from addiction to anxiety, any type of mental health issue. Basically using my own experience to as like a peer support, and to show girls that you are worth it. You don't have to go at it alone. I think the biggest thing is giving people a person to relate to. Through this program, I aim to use physical fitness and acceptance, loving who you are, because that's the first step in getting anywhere.
When you're falling away from me, when you're falling